little storm system in there.
But all these yo-yo temperatures are not just confusing us, they're confusing our plants.
Oh, absolutely. You know, plants are actually blooming at this point. They've been tricked into an early spring. This has many homeowners wondering about potential damage to their gardens next year. I spoke with Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms in Cambridge, and he explains that there's no real reason for concern. The amazing warmth of November and early December has tricked many plants and trees into thinking this has been the shortest winter on record. And now folks are wondering what type of effect this will have come next spring.
So about a month ago, I cut everything back to the ground as I do every fall, and here we have everything coming back up thinking it's spring. I've got plants showing new growth. There was nothing here a month ago, and here it is all showing new growth. Even my bulbs are starting to emerge. Look at my daffodils. They're peeking through. They think it's April.
Sure.
Clearly,
roses too, right?
My roses are in bloom here. My climbing is blooming. And I've even got some new growth.
That's incredible.
Mark Saidnawey, WBZ garden expert, tells us that while this abnormal warmth may have some trees budding, most will come back just fine in the spring.
You know, Todd, the short answer is everything's going to be fine. But I tell you, everything's getting tricked into thinking it's spring right now, including this beautiful magnolia. It kind of looks like it's going to pop open. I'm hearing about forsythias in bloom, azaleas, and rhododendrons. Crazy.
So, Mark, if something's blooming right now, this late in the fall, can we expect it to bloom again in the spring?
Well, as you know, rhododendrons set their buds in the fall and bloom in the spring. If those buds pop open now, chances are those buds will not bloom again in the spring. So hopefully there's still some buds that knew it's wintertime and will stay dormant until the spring and give you the flowers.
There are some precautions the homeowner can take now in the garden just to be on the safe side.
This is called salt marsh hay.
Okay.
You can lay some down over any new growth, help protect it. It's going to probably get burnt a little bit, but you can use that.
Or
you can also get some topsoil and spread down a new layer and help cover up that new growth and give it some nice protection.
Beginning of gardening with Gutner, which is wonderful, and today is all about the cleanup.
I think we might have jinxed it. I think we might have jinxed it.
Let's go with it. Full steam ahead. Let's do this.
I hope we didn't jump the gun here, but we're thinking about gardening. And, you know, with the storm on Friday looming, we're still thinking about gardening, at least some of us are. Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms helps us get into that gardening spirit. All right, Mark, we're back outside. What do we need?
You need three things this time of year. You need a good pair of hand pruners, a good tree saw, and a good rake.
Pruners come in handy with this rhododendron. I shoveled off my roof twice back in February. Still have some snow. I did some damage.
Off of their house, they had no choice, and they'll be damaged. This is where these will come in handy.
Okay, the saw's over here.
Yeah, I mean, dogwoods took a beating this year, including mine back home. You've got a nice snap right here. You want to give it a saw cut right here on this portion.
Will it come back okay?
Oh, yeah, it should be fine.
All right, and then lastly, the rake.
The rake, I mean, you want to clean up your lawn.
Yeah.
But also a lot of white patches in people's yard. This is snow mold, which is a fungus in the lawn. You know, as you're raking, if it's tearing up a lot of lawn, lay down some seed or patch master.
Great. Mark, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Todd.
It's Tuesday, and it's gardening with Gutner time, and I guess you're going to be talking about the stuff you actually can plant now in the ground.
Yeah, the snow is finally melted. The ground is warming up. We can start to plant some plants. Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms and Mass Ave in Cambridge shows us which ones. So, Mark, it's still a little chilly. What can we get in the ground?
Well, it's safe enough now still to put out some of the flowering annuals, and pansies are it.
Yeah.
What's really neat is this new flower right here. This is a nice Delta shade, pumpkin shade it's called, and the Frizzle Sizzle series this year's
that
new.
Sounds pretty exotic.
You can also do African daisies, bacopa, nemesia. These plants can take some light frost.
Okay, now edibles, lettuces are good right now?
Yeah, the cold crop vegetables, which are lettuces, broccoli, parsley, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, etc. There's a bunch you can put in now, not the tomatoes and peppers.
Not yet. And herbs, of course, can go in.
You can start your herbs now. You can pretty much do any herb outside except basil. Don't put your basil outside yet. It's still a little too early for that.
Lastly, the strawberry. It's a tough one to do. What do you recommend?
Well, you can buy a strawberry jar and put it in it. I think it's a great planter to plant your strawberries in. That's what we recommend here.
Mark, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Kids will be outside planting your tomatoes, because I know every year that's what you guys are way into.
I've been driving Todd crazy about the gardening segment for tomatoes. For what?
Can I put them in? Lisa, it's time.
Yes.
We're coming up on Memorial Day weekend, so that's when we put the tomatoes in the ground. And Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms in Cambridge, he helps us get them in there. So, Mark, what's popular and in with tomatoes this season?
Well, heirloom tomatoes are still the hottest thing going. I mean, there's so many varieties, and I try to stock as many as I can, and I've got an assortment here. But this little guy here is the hottest tomato this year. Sun Gold, it's a cherry tomato. I can't keep them in stock. Very delicious tomato.
It's so delicious. I totally agree.
It is.
Give us 3 of your best pieces of advice for planting and growing tomatoes.
Proper spacing. Tomatoes need about 3 feet of space between them, so give them as much space as if you can. The next thing is proper feeding. Get something simple. Tomato fertilizer works fine. And the last thing is proper staking. Get a nice thick stake, not those flimsy little bamboo poles. Something nice and solid, 5 or 6 feet tall. Good to go.
Great. Mark, thanks a lot.
You're
Look
welcome.
forward to planting tomatoes.
Thanks,
Looking
Todd.
for some shade during the dog days of summer, and if you've had a lot of shade in your backyard, planting a flower garden can be a challenge. In today's Gardening with
in the
Gutner,
middle of summer is pretty difficult, but shade gardening is even more difficult.
Hey, Todd.
Mark, whoa. What could you possibly be doing on the roof of your shed right now?
Well, you're right. Shade gardening is more difficult, and I have this ugly shed, and I've sodded the roof with a nice shady seat, and voila, I've got some beautiful sun grass growing in the shade. Just got to keep mowing it, though. It's a little bit of a pain.
And it's tough to get the lawnmower up there, I bet.
It sure is. Hand clippers will do it.
So you've got some other shady patches in your yard back here. Let's go take a look at them. Come on down.
Let me show you what I got.
All right, cool. So, Mark, give us 3 good tips on shade gardening.
Well, when selecting your plants, I think of some color, I think of some screening, and I think of some nice texture with the foliage.
Okay.
For color, nothing beats impatience. You know, they just bloom throughout the summer. They stay beautiful till November. For me, I've got this wooden fence, which is very unattractive, and I've planted climbing hydrangea.
Beautiful.
Great June, July, and maybe until a little bit of August bloomer. Plant is amazing, one of my favorites. And the last thing, in a dark corner, are hostas. And if you pick different colored hostas, you'll see again more hostas, some Brunera, which adds some contrast. Got some foliage in the back, and more impatiens again for color.
And it adds a little, level of tears in here with the Japanese.
It does. It does. When you're sitting on the patio to look over there and see that. More hostas, and then, of course, one of my last favorite shrubs for the shade is oak leaf hydrangea.
Another hydrangea.
This is a more unusual variety. It's more of a conical shaped flower. A dappled light would be best, but they'll grow in partial shade.
Beautiful. So you've given us a lot of great options here in your backyard. If you have any other questions on planting in the shade, Mark Saidnawey, WBZ garden expert, Pemberton Farms, Mass Ave in Cambridge. Thanks, Mark.
All right, Todd,
Tuesday,
thanks.
Gardening with Gutner. Now we're talking about growing and eating flowers. I thought only the deer eat the flowers.
perfect for salads.
It is. I mean, we've covered how to plant flowers, how to care for flowers, but never how to eat them. It sounds really weird, right? Well, Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms in Cambridge, he gives us some insight into edible flowers.
You know, besides the vegetable and herb garden that you do with your kids, you can also plant some flowers that you don't have to worry about them eating, hence edible flowers that we have here. Daylilies, tulips are edible, marigolds, roses, you know, the little hips you can use and make tea with them.
Right.
Impatiens, begonias, and of course the 2 most popular, nasturtiums and pansies.
This sounds great. Why don't we taste them? Let's go eat.
We prepared a dish for you. I've got a salad with some pansies on it, and you've got a main dish with some pansies and tulips.
Yeah,
Cheers.
I'm going to try the pansy and chicken. What do you
Yes,
got?
pansy and cucumber.
All right. Wow. Honestly, it's not bad. Adds a little flavor, a little
does.
crunch.
Makes the plate beautiful, too.
Yeah.
Nice
Mark,
garnish.
thanks a lot for the info.
You're welcome,
This
Todd.
week in Gardening with Gutner, Todd has some home remedies to get rid of common garden pests.
So obviously, this growing season has been a very wet one. That's presented some problems, especially with slugs. They're in the gardens, and they're eating all kinds of foliage. Mark Saidnawey from Pemberton Farms is here to give us a little help on combating these little slimy little creatures.
Oh, boy, they've been just devouring all my hostas. Here's a great example of one here. I've got some great home remedies. Let me show you a couple ideas that I have for you.
Mark, you're supposed to drink that, not pour that in your garden.
You know, Todd, I'm a big fan of home remedies, and slugs are attracted to beer. So what I've done is, in various areas of my garden where they've been eating my hosta leaves and other things, is just put a little beer, submerge it around, fill it up, and you'd be surprised when you come out tomorrow morning how many slugs are swimming in the beer.
Floating in the beer there, right?
Yeah.
What's this egg in your hand for?
Well, you can also break open an egg and crush it up and spread the eggshells around it. Slugs will crawl over them, and the sharp edges will take care of those.
Okay, that's not a pretty sight.
Yeah.
You know, there are other critters in the garden that cause all kinds of problems. Squirrels, chipmunks. Do you have remedies for
squirrels and chipmunks and rabbits? You can certainly put up a fence, but not attractive. So you can get a predatory urine, which helps deter these little guys from coming around.
This is fox urine.
It is fox urine.
And it's supposed to smell really bad?
It does smell really bad. Squirrels know the scent, chipmunks and rabbits, and it's a very...
It's going to keep me away, too.
Yeah, I know, it will. But it's a very good deterrent to keep them away from eating your flowers. I have a plant right here, a Coreopsis. Somebody ate it right down to the ground. So what you do is you put it in these vials, and you put them around the garden in little indiscreet places. and it really works. It helps keep them away. I also use some red chili pepper flakes. You can mix it with water and spray it on the foliage and on the fruit once it begins to fruit.
I love the flavor on my pizza. Is it going to taste like that on the veggies too?
Well, you just wash your fruit off and it'll go away. I mean, it's a good deterrent because those squirrels and chipmunks and rabbits are going to be after that soon, too.
2011, and it focuses on getting your backyard ready for a long winter ahead. WBZ gardening expert Mark Saidnawey, owner of Pemberton Farms in Cambridge, shows us how a diligent cleanup now can save a lot of time this coming spring.
Well, the first thing I do is I get out my pair of pruners because it's time to cut your garden back. I make sure I remove all of my annuals, my impatiens, my marigolds, petunias, rip them out, throw them in the compost pile, and then I want to cut back all of my perennials.
And after that, what are we doing?
Well, once I put my flower beds away for the winter, I turn my attention to the lawn. I make sure I move all the leaves.
What's the importance about getting the leaves up?
Well, the problem this year with the maple leaves and the fungus and so on, I want to make sure I remove all the foliage as much as I can anyway, less chance of any of the fungus spores spreading.
Okay, and then on to the equipment here, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the swap over for the lawnmower to the snowblower, but I add some gas stabilizer to my lawnmower, make sure I sharpen my hand tools, and I make sure that I put out my bird feeders for the winter ahead for the birds.
Last little touch. Mark, it's been a great season. We look forward to working with you in the spring.
Thanks, Todd.
Funny because this time of year we don't yet complain about the artwork. We're just happy to be outside in the warm weather. Todd Gutner is starting a new segment today. It's called Gardening with Gutner. I like that, Todd Gutner. Did you come up with that name?
I didn't. We had a big staff working on that name for us back down in the weather office. You know, guys, this is my favorite time of the year. You know, winter's in our rearview mirror. Things are budding, things are blooming, and people are really itching to get back in the garden. Now, it's a little too soon to go completely into the garden, but there are several plants, some early season plants that we can get in at this point in the growing season. Joining me right now is a local expert, Mark Saidnawey. Come on in here, Mark. From Pemberton Farms in Cambridge, right on Mass Ave. Great spot. Mark, I guess the biggest challenge for some of these early season gardeners is really the weather, right. The cold temperatures. But all these plants that you have brought in are pretty much frost-proof. What'd you bring us?
Absolutely. You know, with a day like today, everybody would think that they can plant pretty much anything in their garden. But we still have to be a little careful with the last frost date being April 30th. People can get started with their vegetable garden right now. We brought in a sampling of lettuce, parsley, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. They can start their herb gardens now, and they can start their strawberries now.
Now, the strawberries and the herbs here, they're in containers. Great idea, because some of these mornings, it is cold, it is below freezing. You can literally pick those up and bring them in the house, get them out of the frosty temps.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what's great about container gardening early in the season, is if it was too cold, you can bring them inside.
Okay, those are the veggies. Let's move on to the flowers. What do we have over here?
Well, nothing says spring in New England more than pansies. We've got violas and then the full-size pansies. And it comes in many shapes, colors, sizes. You can put your daffodils, tulips, all your bulb products can go in, and then some daisy products as well.
When I was growing up as a kid, my mom, for better or worse, had us in the garden all the time. She, specifically with the pansies here, would have us picking off the dead flowers.
Correct.
Saying they would flower into the summer.
Yep.
Was she making this stuff up?
No, absolutely not. You definitely want to deadhead your plants. The more you deadhead, the more they bloom. So absolutely pinch them back.
Gotcha.